once again, welcome everybody to the day two keynote for the Creativity Conference. Last night we had a social get together and it was very moving listening to the feedback from everybody who had attended the sessions in the day. Everybody gets access to the replays and will be able to view those. We'll be sharing a second version of the schedule with everybody shortly, with links to the replays. Hats off to Aidan Rode here, who's been diligently doing the work, preparing them, topping and tailing them, and renaming them, and putting the links together for everybody so you can get quick access. Everybody who's on a free attendance, welcome. You get access to those replays for probably a couple of weeks, so dive in and make the most of them. Everyone who's got the paid ticket, you get a full year of access to the library, and it's $25, I think we set it as, for a full ticket, full access to the conference. If you'd really like to have access, but $25 is a stretch for you, send me an email, maxim@creativityconference.is, and give me one dad joke, and I will send you a discount code so that you can access the library for free for a year. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm really scraping the barrel for dad jokes. It's getting pretty desperate times, so the door is open. The feedback that we've had on the conference so far has been really phenomenal. And what I want to ask is, at the end of the conference, we're going to be sending out a feedback form. And it really makes a difference to us if you complete those forms and you let us know what we're doing right, what we could do differently, and what you loved and what you found the most transformational about your experience of attending the conference. Couple of things to note as well, and let me go back to my amazing shared screen here for a second. I must give a big thank you to Dell, Intel, and NVIDIA. We've been talking to a lot of sponsors for years about the Creativity Conference, and the only companies that have ever actually given us financial support is Dell, Intel, and NVIDIA. And I salute them. They've been with us right from the start. And obviously, all three of those companies are working on fantastic creative technologies, really innovative stuff. And we're very, very glad to have them with us. So thank you very much to those guys. We do have some phenomenal partners as well. And I felt like I should have given these guys a bigger shout out in our day one keynote. Goodness, we've got Microsoft, who have supported us and partnered with us on our New York conferences. Raindance Film Festival getting involved in our short film competition. We'll be announcing the winners for the film competition tomorrow. We have a partnership with the Da Vinci International Film Festival, also working on that competition. Misfit Group have been phenomenal, helping us with designs, and Creative 111 as well. That's actually Nick Haroz's company. And if anybody has attended his sessions, you know what a tremendous speaker he is. Aware Now is on our homepage, and you'll have seen the tremendous work they're doing. We partner with them in outreach and connecting with our audience. Peach Pit have given us prizes. And actually, you should have received a confirmation email about this. Peach Pit gave us a 35% discount code just for the conference and put us on their homepage. It's just phenomenal. Film Do have given us consultancy and advice in the past. Maxon and Boris Effects, both of those companies have given us prizes for our competition, and they've been sharing the love with their audiences. All of these partners really make events like the Creativity Conference possible for free. The fact that we're able to put this on is because, what's that phrase? Teamwork makes the dream work, right? I think that's the phrase, right? Partnerships, collaboration is at the heart of all major human endeavor. I also want to repeat my thanks from yesterday to our team. Aidan Rode, I've already mentioned, is our all-star player fixing everything. Aidan tends to tell me something's broken after he's fixed it, which is just great. It's my favorite kind of job that I find out I don't need to do. So hats off to you, Aidan, as ever. I also wanted to thank our room hosts that I think many of you will have met today. Zero Snook, Maddie French, Laiz Lala Kogo. That name is way cooler than mine. Carl Hilbrick, Danny Mayers, George Blumenthal. Fantastic team that are really bringing the right spirit of the venture to these sessions, and I hope you've been enjoying their support. Einar Edlinson, who's our Icelandic project manager, is you haven't seen much of him, but you will if you come to Iceland when we run our conference in person there. John Jaglenski's been helping with programming. Jay Dennison's been a conference coordinator. And these people and more have really had a huge impact on bringing this conference to you. And speaking of impact, that's my piece, really. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming. I hope that you're very much enjoying attending the conference, and I hope that you will spread the word and invite others to join you. And I'm very, very proud and very excited to be in a position to introduce you today to our keynotes. Let me bring up my details here. So we are very fortunate today to have with us Paul Doherty and Marbue Dennis, who are absolutely luminaries in the international business world. And Paul and Marbue are launching a new podcast at the beginning of November, the Elevated Business Podcast, that is anticipated to really big impact in the world. And I was speaking to Marbue and Paul before we started the keynote about how I should introduce them. And apropos of what I said earlier about jobs that I don't need to do, it turns out that they are perfectly comfortable introducing themselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to hear this talk myself and hear about the experiences that Paul and Marbue are bringing to bear in the new podcast and beyond. And gentlemen, over to you.
Maxim, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting both Marbue and I into this wonderful environment. And I just think that the entire tone of the Creativity Conference just gives it an energy that is, it goes beyond just a typical conference, especially a Zoom conference, right? Coming out of COVID, I think we're all now superstars when it comes to use of how to actually work inside of these types of virtual environments. So just kudos to you and the team, Maxim, for day one. And now that as we lean into day two, I wanted to introduce my partner, my brother, Marbue Dennis, who we formed an alliance about a year ago and have learned so much from each other that we felt that we wanted to share how we can be independently successful from the standpoint of certain business measures. But then when we start to talk about life measures, this is where the magic happens. This is when you realize that when you meet another person, that there is something of a higher calling, rather than just looking at the scarcity mindset of just business goals. So that's the spirit that we're going into this. Marbue runs a company called Topline. I run TDG, or the Digit Group. I'm an architect, so that's my creative side. I'm also a builder and a real estate developer that takes into account different types of technologies, different types of innovations from a people-centric standpoint in order to create new urban experiences. Marbue is an accomplished diplomatic businessman, is a proper way of probably introducing him, that has an extensive array of transactional and investable ways of making an impact in the world. So when you put the two of us together, we like to call ourselves, two players on the Harlem Globetrotters, where we have two different ways of having depth, but when we actually combine things together, creates an amazing creative space with projects that you'll hear over time that almost seem like magic. Marbue, I'd love to kick off just a conversation, right? And this is kind of a preview of what to expect starting November 1st every week, with a weekly series of interviews of just talking topics that are broad, but what will always be the horizontal weaving will be this idea of energy, of abundance, creativity, that we should not shy away from. So, when I met you, Marbue, you were talking about this idea of scarcity and abundance, and I needed to learn how to see again. And I thought that the phrase from Leonardo da Vinci saying that, when you're learning how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else. And it's a big vision because usually we try and break things down, especially in the business world where deliverables need to be exact and we need to understand that there's a transaction that needs to happen and that's how the world goes round. But you had me pull up from that and take a broader look as to, well, how do you relearn or in certain cases unlearn how to see? And I thought that your examples of scarcity and abundance would be a good starting point to have that conversation, not just between us, but with everyone that's in the room right now.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. Um, as I stated last year, taking people on a journey through the jungle, as I did as a child, um, was a disruptive way to really be immersive and start to see the world through the most natural state. And, as a child living in the jungle in Liberia, West Africa, um, I was privileged to actually see how indigenous people live every single day. And they tend not to have the same stresses that we put on ourselves. They tend not to have even the same types of sicknesses that we put on ourselves because there's a harmonious accord and alignment that every day when they wake up, they wake up to that. We wake up a lot of times in our society looking around, trying to connect. And they seem to be interwoven with nature, with the streams of the river, with the animals, in a very simplistic way. And that harmony is vibrational. And I was privileged to be exposed to that at a young age. And my family grew up in England, and they had a different vibration from those folks. And so to be able to see that difference between abundance and scarcity in the approach to living, where you might not have a lot of materials, but you have everything else, that affords us the freedom to really think and feel and see the world through a whole different lens. So it was a healthy experience for me at a young age.
Marbue, when you introduced the concept of abundance to me, it seemed that it helped me to redefine the creative forces that emerge within the business and the world that I was living in. Very, very fortunate to have relationships with leadership within the Chinese Communist Party in China, with the royal family and the royal court in Saudi Arabia, our business partnership with the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the United Arab Emirates, our very close relationship through numerous administrations with the White House. We are at a very high level when we're dealing with creating smart cities from scratch with these tools that are constantly emerging that allow us the flexibility and the creativity to start to express, well, there's the practicalities of there's a need out there for a creative approach to implementing urban environments that don't look like what Hollywood wants it to be, or at least their thoughtlessness in Blade Runner. Who wants to live in an environment like that? Yet again, you also don't want to be utopian, where the future cities and the way that humans are going to be interacting and communicating can't all be Pollyanna as well. So one of the things about abundance that you've taught me is about the ability to tell stories and having that creative influence come into an urban environment where I can start from the people-centric version first, right? Where a lot of times there are policies, there's programs about bigger Wi-Fi and autonomous vehicles and just all these fun things. But again, learning how to see again, if everything is connected to everything else, that means that when I wake up in the morning, and I bound out of bed every morning because it's just so exciting to see this white canvas again, about how you can make a decision on one thing, but understand that there's a ramification, almost like flicking a spider's web, that everything then starts to vibrate into that world. And I'd love to have you express about when you introduced that to me, how that became almost like that tuning fork that allows both of us every day to have that childlike way of looking at things in an abundant way, rather than the old school way of, well, where a lot of people plays in that scarcity model, that there's only a finite amount of pie and you're going to just have to dive into it.
Right, right. Yeah, so I can liken it to, speaking about living in the jungle, you know, that was disrupted by war. And my father was kidnapped by a warlord, Charles Taylor, in Liberia. And I had to make my way back to Houston, Texas, where I was born. Now I had to assimilate into another culture with another approach to living. And it had me very much analyze the environment around me to understand the differences, positives and negatives, right? And in that, I had to assess the world around me. Growing up in Houston, Texas is different than being in the jungles of Liberia. And there's some fractured and divided differences that I felt the need to try to bring together. And that for me was my journey of like really getting creative and thinking about, you know, what would happen if I had a technology where I could dance with my grandmother in Africa while I'm in America? What would happen if one of these kids in Texas had a Chinese friend that they could play with at a very formative age? You know, what would happen is a lot of unity and a lot of contextual understanding at a younger age. So I think when you look at things like abundance through the lens of technology, it affords us the ability to remove limits that we place on ourselves and in our environments, and start to connect with people in the most ideal ways, which is how, you know, for you as an innovator in smart cities and the metaverse, some of these technologies and AI can really open up creative possibilities of being interconnected societal.
So let's drill down on that. I mean, you just brought up AI, and I just happen to have that, right, as a screen. But you know, there's been talk around AI now of as a disruptive tool like I've never seen before. You know, I was there at the beginning of the internet. I was there, you know, through a lot of iterations of the next big thing, big data. Remember when big data was the big thing? It still is. But, you know, I've never seen the explosive nature of people trying to wrap their arms around what this thing is. I want to commend Maxim and his team for pulling and curating a number of different deep dives during this conference regarding AI because of its disruptive nature. But, you know, taking the scarcity and abundance model and diving into artificial intelligence, I have to say, I really wish we had more natural intelligence, right? Because, you know, there's a lot of folks that are running with this thing, and it's like AI is going to take jobs. AI will never take one job. Not one job. A person using AI will absolutely take your job. That's where we have a difference of understanding what this thing is turning into. So, you know, we're, you know, in our industry, which is, you know, building design, you know, that type of thing, we use a lot of workers, a lot of humans in order to build the built environment. So I loved what people did in Europe. You know, this generative chatbot called ChatGPT by OpenAI. Everyone's like, oh my God, this is great. You know, we can, you know, just dive into this thing and it's just going to take care of everything. And like, we're going to press a button and a building pops up. I love what this says though. Hey, GPT, finish this building. AI is not swinging hammers or cutting wood yet. There is a lot of groundwork where we can start to take this piece of clay and mold it into a fantastic tool that can start to help from the abundance model, rather than I'm going to lose my job because of AI. It's one of the reasons why the writers and the screen actors are on strike right now. A lot of that has to do with that notion that, you know, all of a sudden, with deep fakes and the ability for machines to learn and learn characteristics of an individual, you know, is William Morris Endeavor now going to become a agency for the likeness, almost like an you know, that NIL thing that's going through NCAA sports right now, where after you die, I can still place you because of your great acting skills inside of this vessel as an avatar. And now all of a sudden I can reuse your likenesses and never have to pay you again. I mean, that's the extreme, but that's part of the conversation that's going on. Inside of our industry, there's things that we do to actually build the built environment in a creative way that gets down to the practicalities of we have to pull a building up out of the ground, or we need to build a bridge, or whatever it is. And it comes down to two elements. One of those is drawings or modeling, 3D modeling, along with the written narrative of what you want. So one of my friends, Hugh Seaton, he owns a company called The Link, and he has this one application called Spec GPT. And what he did with AI was pretty amazing, right? Because what he did was he trained his machine over a 3-year period. So he's not a, Johnny come lately, I want to capitalize on ChatGPT. No, not at all. He's been at this a while and learning the differences of AI and how the machine can learn and then spit out what you need. So with that, he created Spec GPT, and I challenged him. I said, listen, I can write a specification to my drawing for 100,000 square foot commercial office building in a suburb of somewhere USA in probably about 40 hours, 1 work week. And that's speedy, right? We put it to the test, threw it into his machine. 42 seconds is what he needed in order to create what I do in 40 hours. So architects and engineers out there, part of the creative community, right now, your business model has changed. Someone moved your cheese, right? Because you can no longer count on your business model being about billable hours. Because how do you bill for 42 seconds? So this is where, we're starting to get into some nitty gritty, Marbue, that has real world effect on one component of business. But, again, expand out where we're looking. And there's a lot of scared people saying, wow, could we curtail AI? Could we put the genie back in the bottle? And I say, no. What we have to do is understand that there's a new medium, and we have to learn how to interface with that. We started out with, a mouse. Now in the world of metaverse, your mouse is an avatar. And with avatars, could we actually augment that into the world of AI and yada, yada, yada? So again, everything is connected to everything. And I'm still learning how to see. And some stuff is getting blurrier because I think I'm getting older.
Well, I think the best way to simplify the discussion and understanding for everybody is looking at scarcity and abundance through the lens of fear and love. I think more people are driven through fear, unfortunately, and that's a driver of scarcity. If we lead with love, that's abundance. And I think, when you start talking about the word love, people can roll their eyes and so on and so forth. But again, to be in harmony with something, to be aligned with something in the nature sense, there's a sense of love there. There's a spiritual essence that I think, you become almost dependent on each other. And that's what we're missing. When you approach business through a scarcity lens and you don't trust anyone and you fear for your resources to be taken and you want to move up and you want to be successful, that drives you. It's a self-serving approach. From an abundance approach, it's not just about you, it's about the impact that you're creating for those around you, for the animals, for the ocean, for the air, for your fellow neighbors. And if you have that kind of an approach in life, the rewards are more benefiting for you and everyone around you. So I think, it's a big idea, but it's a simplified way of looking at it that you can utilize it in business and in your personal.
Well said, brother. I'm going to drill down and stay a little bit more on the, our industry's use of different things on the topic of AI, because now I think, as we start to talk at the elevated business level, people can start to see the weaving of how it all starts to tie together. And one of the ways that I know creatives are really good at communicating is through visuals, right? So the same company that gave us ChatGPT as a chatbot also has a very good what's called generative AI tool called DALL-E 2. So OpenAI has DALL-E 2. I always like the name of DALL-E because, as you can see, they sort of took the Disney hit movie WALL-E and actually placed it up there, but they also tie it into Salvador Dali. So very clever about how they named this thing. But this is where the tool sets, I think, are starting to come into play for creatives, where, again, when you get a new tool and you can use a new medium, it's up to you to figure out how to start to upskill yourself or reskill yourself in a way that is not, oh my God, I got to catch up because I'm going to be put out of business. But again, that abundance model of let's embrace this thing and see what it can do instead of running away from it. In this case, this is a generative model that allows visualizations to be put together in unique ways for architects, interior designers, people like that. What this means is that instead of having a million choices and then going through your design iterations, you come up with like maybe 4 that are very close to what your prompts are. Prompts are like your questions or your wants, your needs. In this case, in DALL-E, I went into the prompt and I said, I want to have a lush environment where we are creating a modern looking city that uses biomimicry. In other words, let's use nature almost as a mirror of what this thing could be. Because then as a professional, I can say, right, here's my choices, and now I can take off from there and actually create business. But what I found was that the creation of this is also coming into play of, well, are these other people's IP graphically that are pulling things together in ways that it wasn't intended to? And then, like, who owns it? Right. So there's a lot of questions, almost business wise, that pop up in this. But what I like about it from a creative standpoint, it gets me about 70% there, 60% there. So I'm not, again, I'm putting more time into the overall output. Another really good tool that I've been fooling around with is Midjourney, an AI tool that works on the Discord communication platform. Discord used by gamers and like my 13-year-old son all the time. And they have these apps that sit on top of it. This one's called Midjourney. And this one also, to show you what a prompt looks like, it's as simple as this. It's just a /imagine, and then they give you a box for prompts. Prompt architecture, prompt interior design, prompt design will be driven by this with the next generations coming up, because they're learning how to put words and phrases into play to get to a starting point to skip over some of the creative process that is a slog, right? So in this case, I wanted to test it out, and I put, okay, imagine me, Paul, as Batman. Thanks, AI. Right. So, and one thing that we've discussed before, Marbue, is that when web searching first came out, with Alta Vista, Yahoo, and then eventually Google, I remember it being such a great time sink, right? Like, you'd go in there trying to focus in on one thing to search for, and suddenly 4 hours later, you're looking at kittens. Right. I mean, it's just this great time sink. So how do you now use prompt architecture, prompt ways of bringing, the essence of what you're trying to do? And if you think the time sink of Google was bad, wait till you start to do prompts, because it's almost like an educational process of learning the tool and the skill sets. Other things in AI that I'm seeing from a business aspect is taking the creation of something and reimagining how that can happen. In this case, roomgpt.io. The picture on the left is probably what my living room looks like on a Sunday night after an NFL weekend, right? It's just a mess. There's popcorn everywhere or whatever. The one on the right is actually what you could be. And they've hooked up with IKEA so that if once you get to what you like with the carpet and the lighting and the sofas and everything else, you can pick and choose and actually purchase online. This came about since May. Right. So again, the business generation based upon creativity is starting to blur in such a wonderful way. This is just one last example from our industry. The design and construction industry is this idea of using scanned information on a 2D drawing to create tools out in the field that we want, such as, imagine getting this 2D drawing, but able to click it and I get a 3D model. I actually then print through a 3D printer to solve problems out in the field. this was like, I mean, this was like Dick Tracy sci-fi type of stuff only a few months ago. So the speed at which all of this is going on is breathtaking, but it also provides us a rich environment for further discussion about, all right, my 13-year-old son and all of his friends, right? They grew up gamers. They do not have the perception that there's a difference between the digital world and the physical world. It's something that I worried about as a dad. Like, if you're going to be on an Xbox, you're going to be on your phone, you're going to be wearing a head-mounted display for VR. I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to his social skills? Guess what? Nothing. The kids are just using a different environment. They're the natives, right? And we're the immigrants. And we have to understand that the cyber-physical relationship is something that the creative community not only must embrace, but I think we should flourish. Because I'm sick and tired of looking at games and going, oh man, those buildings look warped, right? Because it's gamers. Why not have more professional ways of creating digital assets so that we can get to that medium, not to create Ready Player One, that movie? Because if you remember, the physical world was so terrible that everyone wanted to escape into the metaverse. If we ever reach that phase, we failed as a community. The idea is, how do we now take, focuses like AI, focuses like, the ability to increase the velocity and the acceleration of the creative process while maintaining control? Because, you never want to give it all away because of that wonderful thing, that vibe that you're talking about, Marbue, of hearing those drum beats and being in sync with things. Because if everything is connected to everything else, we now have a new medium, which is this digital world, this thing that people are calling the metaverse. But when it links together with the physical, magic happens, right? I mean, I still think it's amazing that my Ring doorbell, I could be halfway around the world and my app says there's someone at the front door and I can see who's there and talk to them, right? I mean, that's magic, right? So again, the creative community coming into this space and having a seat at the table, I think is just so important. And, as you go through your daily world and the people that you interface with, are there people talking about this? Because I think that, again, that world of scarcity and abundance being that tuning fork, that North Star, becomes something that we can actually now have a guidance system, almost like a swim lane, for this new, this new metaphor of a everyone, let's agree that this is an illusion, but it's real. Oh, you're on mute there, buddy.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, the time is now. Everybody's starting to sort of endeavor to be creative in their thinking. And we're seeing technology start to democratize many solutions. And I think, the world of media and entertainment and technology all coming together, giving people opportunities and hope and optimism for the future is it's the perfect time to be alive and be activated. So as you get into talking about how to integrate these solutions, utilizing sports, entertainment, platforms, community, Brother Paul, as a smart city expert and an architect, what are you seeing as the next steps of innovation and integrating it into society and having people have these tools in their hands? What do you see that opening up?
Storytelling. That is the only way forward in all of this. Otherwise, we're going to be implementing innovation and technology just for innovation and technology's sake, when it should be about the individual, providing enhanced environments for them to thrive. A case in point would be a project that we're working on in South Africa right now, where it is a mega project. Just for the audience to know, we are a boutique organization, but we carry a very large portfolio. I am one of the authors of probably the world's largest project ever trying to come out of the ground, called NEOM in Saudi Arabia. Also mega projects throughout China, throughout the rest of the Middle East. But South Africa is special to me. It's about 10 kilometers north of Durban. It is a 20-kilometer stretch of beachfront property that's only 5 kilometers wide. So it's like a very large rectangle. Originally, it was supposed to be by the owners, it was supposed to be positioned for a whole bunch of beach resorts. And this was pre-COVID. They threw it over to me and said, what can you do with this? We don't want to go that route. And I said, well, the land's going to tell me what it wants to be. And I had to come up with those stories so that you had to understand, like, there's a physical place on planet Earth that this thing resides. And I found out two key things. Number one, that stretch of land is the closest.
Don't put your name.
Is the closest to the migration of dolphins twice a year. So, that's interesting. The other thing was that it's the ancient homeland of the Zulu nation, the people that fought against the colonists. So by putting those two things together and doing the research with a cultural anthropologist, we learned that the land wanted to be a modern version of what the Zulu nation was, along with the deference to nature and trying to highlight like how beautiful it is to have those dolphins, who are one of the smartest species in the world. And how does that interface with the people that are there? And how can we start to not create like a Club Med, but create a nurturing environment based upon abundance, so that I have to unlearn that the continent of Africa is not a UNICEF commercial with flies on babies' faces, right? Yes. I have to unlearn that as an individual, that there are very, very smart and proud people there that are just want to give a chance. So what we've done is we've woven entertainment into sports to create a better environment for the community to, over time, figure out what it wants to be. All we're creating is the environment for that to happen. Now, the key part about this is that, in order to tell that story, we had a very, very good benchmarking about what this thing wants to be. So when I went to the money people, I went to the local governments, the federal governments, and then, of course, the property owner itself. I said, what we really want to create here is Wakanda from the Black Panther. That was something that blew me away with the storytelling from Marvel Comics that became something of a rallying cry, saying, not poor Africa, it's let's celebrate it, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the things that, from a practical level, storytelling became so important with that, because now all of a sudden they're finding their own legs to be a community. And it's going to be something that people want to come to, not entice people to come through. They're going to want to understand about the STEM, about the creativity, about what all that wants to be, because it's authentic. So authentic storytelling should be, the rallying cry for this community here at the Creativity Conference.
This is so powerful. What you just articulated might be the most powerful messaging in all this. I mean, there are whole communities all around the planet that are starving for people like us to show up and support them, because where leadership isn't doing that, we can endeavor to do so. So when you talk about, colonialism and South African cultural heritage and supporting and sustaining that, you're breathing life into the world just in doing so. And if we can have more people emulate that kind of thinking and messaging and activation, we're really helping the world. So I just want to say, one thing that got me beating my drum loudly, profoundly, independently, with very little support early on, was the movie Blood Diamonds, and what I saw in that movie depicted. It was the first time that I saw in the West the depiction of Africa from a lens of true empathy. Like Brother Paul said, I grew up in America looking at UNICEF commercials with flies flying across kids' faces, and if you give them 5 cents a day, you can save everything. And that's the only interpretation people had of Africa. And it really broke my heart to go to Europe and see commercials where Africa, they're like, fly to Kenya. And it looks like a commercial for Croatia. It looks so beautiful. We never get those commercials in America. So I thought, a movie like Blood Diamonds with Leonardo DiCaprio depicting the war and the fighting for diamonds, in less than 1 year, it changed global policy all across the planet. And that's because little kids saw that their buying power could really hurt the lives impact the lives negatively of these kids in Africa. One movie was able to put images up that really touched people's hearts, and the policies changed and the laws changed, and it benefited so many lives. So what happens when we now mechanize media to do just that, to shed a light on certain things and remove the darkness and unify us and bring understanding to us. So I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think with the message on the screen, love in abundance and not fear and scarcity, is what's going to heal us all, bring us all together, sharing laughter, sharing memories, building communities, and sustaining that.
Well, I could not have said it better. Very eloquent. Thank you. One last thing about this word, which is a very powerful word. In business situations, either, Fortune 500 suits all the way through the creatives, this word, I believe, needs a reimagining of what that means. Romantic love is fine, but at the end of the day, there's a love of oneself. There's a love between people of seeing those vibrations and understanding that creatives understand this probably better than anyone, that there's a flow that happens when you're really in a groove. There's nothing like it. It's a natural high, right? So, I hope that, people use this word more in a business situation, because I think it could be a better world for that. Brother, we are up against some time constraints here. I'd like to thank Maxim again and his talented team for providing an environment for a discussion like this. We do have certain things that we'd like to say that, outside of this conversation. There are books. I've been very blessed to have a book published this year about smart cities. A lot of the topics we talked about are in it. Authors make no money today. Okay, so I'm not doing this to make money. It's about getting the word out. There's a Kindle version, everything else, but it's about, keeping the community into a conversation that could be within oneself, but also between each other. Also in December, John Wiley & Sons is publishing an Unlocking the Metaverse book. It's in pre-release right now. It's rated #1 new release on Amazon. I can't believe that. Again, the abundance model. Sometimes you do the right thing and good things happen to you. But I really do look at my career and I feel like I'm Forrest Gump. Good things just happen, and I don't know why. I think I'm Irish and I'm lucky, but I didn't plan any of this, trust me. And then finally, this idea of elevated business. The podcast is meant to be a give back to the world. We have a very blessed Rolodex of people, including Maxim, who I think the world of, that would absolutely be, wonderful to be part of these types of conversations. It'll be a once a week to start. It'll be on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. We are up and operational already on LinkedIn and Twitter X. Is that the right way of saying that? I mean, Twitter X, like I don't know what to call it anymore. Elon's toy. Okay, over there. And finally, just feel free to reach out to us, social media and whatnot, to continue the conversation. It's a never-ending conversation, brother, and I couldn't be happier to have a partner like you to continue it well forever.
Likewise, brother, and thank you, Maxim. It's such an honor and a privilege to have such like-minded people all galvanized around the same harmonious accord.
Well, my goodness, I'm so moved, and I don't know if you would even have seen me throughout your presentation there, nodding my head vigorously and saying, yes, it's that. And I'm reminded of conversations that the three of us have had in the past. You've really blessed us today, and I'm very grateful. I'm very proud to have friends like you both. And a couple of things I just can't resist responding to when Paul was talking about Wakanda. And I came out of the cinema feeling exactly the same way, so invigorated. And I've been saying for years, Africa, the whole continent, should be Eden. And it makes no sense. But Eden that has continued to develop and grow and show the rest of the world how life is meant to be done. And I think that was illustrated. It's a movie, right? It's a superhero movie, but I felt that was illustrated beautifully. I came out of the cinema thinking, Wakanda forever. I want to live there. Let's go. I'm also was very moved by both of you talking about the importance of love. And you mentioned about love and fear. I think you've probably heard me speak about that many times, and or I have, coincidentally. It's so important. And we dress it up the wrong way, right? We dress it up like chocolate boxes and roses and rainbows, but it's much more fundamental than that. And yeah, it's where it's at. And you mentioning about stories, I would argue that every aspect of our identities and the meaning of our lives is a story. Everything we do is a story. The clothes we wear, the language we speak. Um, Thank you. You've covered such a lot of ground. I wanted to mention as well, one of the things that we did last year at the conference that we should do again, and I'm hoping Aidan will remind me because he's much more organized than I am, is we invite our speakers to share contact information with our attendees after the event. We'll make a form you can fill in that will turn into a Google Sheets doc, and we'll share that with the attendees. So if you'd like at that time to share the podcast link to access that and sign up, websites, contact information, we'll be inviting all of our speakers to do that so people can find you and connect with you. Now, I'm not sure of the best way to offer thanks on a Zoom call, though I've given so many presentations this way. I'm tempted to suggest that everybody does jazz hands. If you've got your camera on, it's the but all I can do is say thank you. I'm sure everyone had a lot to think about from your presentation there. And thank you very much, Paul and Marbue. Fantastic.
Are there any questions, Maxim?
We may have time for one or two. And let's see, did anybody put anything in the chat? Aidan, did you say anything coming up here? Lots of people.
Yes, there were a couple. It was mostly just like, yes, I agree. This is awesome.
Right.
For the most part.
But did anybody have any substantive, qualitative, constructive questions?
This is the time. You're welcome to
Feel free to unmute. We've set Zoom this year so that you can unmute yourself. Jay?
I always have questions. You know that, Maxim. So
good.
Thank you so much for these amazing words and just both of what you shared today. So it was just awesome. I was being blown away. I do wonder that, I always tell my students technology itself is not, inherently good or bad. It's what humans do with it. And yet, with nuclear energy being one of them, we always find a way to do bad stuff with the technology we have. And I think that's the biggest reservation with AI is that, as soon as a human found a rock and said, oh yeah, I can slice up a coconut, I can also, throw this at a competing tribe, right? Or something like that. So what ways do you think we as a society can better understand and use this tool without completely decimating ourselves, from a social and economic perspective? Because I do think it's moving so quickly, and anybody that's worked in big corporations know those are big boats that take forever to turn. Mm-hmm. It's outpacing, I think, businesses' ability to respond to it. So how would you address that?
This is why, real quick, Paul, and then you can go. This is why you see us going back and forth like a tennis match in the conversation, where I'm speaking to a lot of ethereal things, and Paul is speaking to a lot of the technicalities of business. I think there's a balance. And at the foundational level, when you talk about the indigenous societies, at the foundation, we have to get back to that, right? Community. Like, where's our education in America? We used to be, top of the developing countries. Education is not prioritized like it used to be. Neither is community. Like, we're not as close with our neighbors as we used to be. So before we start wielding all of these gadgetries and these, sophisticated technologies, let's get back to the simple form of understanding what it means to be a family, what it means to be a community, what it means to be unified in any kind of way. And that way we know what to do with these technologies, and we're not just using technologies to blow up things and shoot up things because we're inherently sick inside. Please, Brother Paul.
No. I'm ready to sit back and pop some popcorn. That was awesome. So, there's a couple of different thoughts and approaches. I lived in China for many, many, many years. And, in that society, they have almost not so much like they've given up, but they have this idea of balance, that there's a yin and the yang, right? That no matter how powerful the positive energy is, you will actually have a counterbalance of negative. So it's not so much that we want to get out ahead of the bad guys, but it's an understanding that with all the good we're doing, a good defense is a great offense, right? So that, as we go down these pathways, we're discovering, oh my God, if that gets unleashed, oh my God, right? Actually, I've talked about this with you, Marbue. My biggest fear now is that the next great religion is going to come from something online. And I do mean religion, not spirituality, not anything else, but a structured way of having, an overlord, be able to take people's minds and have them in such a way that, we are looking at George Orwell being Nostradamus. It's like, wow. So the great balance is really where this could be an entire discussion, almost an entire conference, of understanding that even if there's a great negative, nature will always then have a good positive as well. So again, it's going to be the never-ending fight. It's something that I'm preparing my son for. That everything isn't utopia. You strive for that, but know that there's going to be bad actors, there will be bad people, there will be bad things that will always be there, and thus life as humans on planet Earth.
I asked my students, because I'm teaching at like 3 different universities and colleges right now, and I asked my students, does it matter if it's real? And what I meant by that was, I said, it seems like there was a case study where the research was that people felt more compassion from chatbots than they did the doctors. That the chatbots listened to them more, provided more empathy, provided these other things. And that to me is really interesting because, with some of the dating apps and other things, it's monetizing relationships, it's commoditizing human beings as resources to be available. And these apps and other things are providing the mechanism to do that. Yet, to your point, Paul, could an AI overlord that tells you what you want to hear about spirituality, about your life, that provides and learns about you and gives you exactly what you want to hear each day, could people fall into that trap and say, give me more, give me more, give me more, because people love sugar, right? Could that happen? I 100% believe you're correct on that.
Now, on this fascinating question, I'm going to bite my lip and resist the urge to contribute to the conversation, because we are now at the point where everyone ought to be getting into the rooms for our afternoon sessions. So once again, thank you for the great questions there, Jay. And thank you again, Paul and Marbue. That's just phenomenal. And I'm so glad that you both agreed to join us for our keynote today. All that remains, again, is to say thank you to everyone. And just to let everybody know, we've got sessions coming up right now. We've got, what do we have? Michael Lee, Mark Tabron, and Nicola Jackman talking about the ways that creativity can help save the planet. We have our digital art panel with Andrew Kavanagh, Katie McIntyre, Paul Bundley, and Carol Purnell. We've got Katie Rossler with the Creative Visionaries Guide to Burnout-Free Goals. I might need some of that with my coffee. And also we have Bob Jacobs, who runs media at NASA, having a one-to-one interview with Sammy Tauber. That's going to be fascinating. And we have our music panel. I don't know how you guys are going to pick between this. We have Alberto Moreno, Patrick Cannell, and John Thomas Dodson exploring music in our music panel. And the rest of the afternoon will be filled with equally wonderful sessions. So again, thank you so much to our keynotes, and wish everyone a wonderful afternoon filled with love, storytelling, creativity, joy, coffee, and chocolate.